As you guys know, Operation Deadly Omen just released to the public, and with it has come some massive changes to every single attachment in the game and a lot of the weapon classes. So in today's video, I'll be showing you all the attachments that got changed, what attachments are the best for certain situations, and what guns work best with all the attachments. So let's go ahead and get into the video. Okay, now the first change I want to go over in this update is the changes to the 1.5, because that is by far going to be the biggest difference in how you set up your loadouts in this update. The reason for this is because the 1.5 has now been turned into a 2.5 magnification scope. It's no longer a 1.5 scope, it's now a 2.5, meaning that it has the same magnification of an ACOG. This makes it arguably worse than the ACOG in a lot of situations, and I find myself rarely ever bringing this weapon sight over other options. Now, speaking of 2.5 magnification scopes, ACOGs were given to a lot of operators. For example, Ash now has ACOG, Doc now has ACOG, Wamai has ACOG, Ace has ACOG, and there are many more examples of this. And so now with all of these operators having access to ACOG and the 2x and the 1.5 scopes being changed to other magnification levels, your choice of weapon sight is actually going to be relatively difficult. The reason for this is because of the new ADS changes. With the release of Operation Deadly Omen, ADS speeds will be getting reduced across the board. However, weapon sights can give you a buff to that ADS speed. At the time of recording, iron sights give you a 10% bonus to ADS speed. And then the 1x sights give you a 5% bonus to ADS speed, which is a relatively noticeable difference compared to what the iron sights provide. Then when you move up to any magnification optic, your ADS speed gets no bonus, meaning that an ACOG is 10% slower than running iron sights, which is a pretty big deal. Now, I will say the situations where you can run iron sights are going to be few and far between, because as you can see with Ash's R4C, her iron sights cover up a large portion of your screen. You can get away with running it, but using them effectively is going to be very difficult. There are exceptions to this rule, like Bandit's MP7, which I'm currently running iron sights on, but for most weapons, you're not going to get this luxury. And the situations where I'd recommend running iron sights are few and far between as well, because iron sights are only really useful when you plan on being a very aggressive player. If you're not going to be taking gunfights a lot, or you're not going to be getting very aggressive, I wouldn't recommend running iron sights because they just make holding angles a lot more difficult. This same philosophy applies to all of the 1x sights. The reason for this is because all of them have no magnification, obviously. So holding angles at a distance is going to be very difficult. So if you're playing an attacker that you plan on sitting outside of a breach with, or if you're playing some sort of anchor inside of the bomb site, it might be a smart decision to bring some sort of magnification optic that can help you get that job done. Now, if you do find yourself in a position wanting to run the ACOG and still play aggressive, there is something that can help you with that. That is the new laser sight changes. The only underbarrel option in the game as of right now is the laser sight, and the changes made to this attachment are pretty significant. Before this update, the laser sight used to affect your hipfire spread, making it tighter and easier to hit hipfire shots. However, now after the update, the laser sight affects your ADS speed pretty significantly, might I add. If you have the laser sight equipped, it will give you a 10% bonus to your ADS speed, meaning that if you run an ACOG and a laser sight, you will get the same benefits as you would if you just ran no laser sight and iron sights. This can actually make the ADS speed feel pretty quick, especially on operators that are 3 speeds that already have a fast sprint to ADS speed. Now, there are some disadvantages to doing this. First off, holding angles with a laser sight and an ACOG is going to be pretty difficult because your laser, as you can see on this, door frame right here, is going to reveal your position when you're holding an angle. So when you're running the laser sight, you need to be aware of it existing because it will give away your position if you're not paying attention. Additionally, the ACOG can make recoil harder to control because the ACOG makes recoil look more significant. For example, this is what the recoil looks like on an ACOG. And this is what R4C recoil looks like with a 1x sight. The patterns may be slightly different, but just ignore that. It's mainly what I'm talking about is how jumpy the recoil seems when you're running the ACOG. Because you're zoomed in more, it's going to make it harder for you to actually see people and to also control the recoil when you're running an ACOG. This generally only applies to newer players because they have a harder time controlling recoil, but it's still worth mentioning. Now, weapon sights weren't the only thing changed to this update. Grips also got a massive overhaul. The vertical grip still does what it did before, which is reduce your vertical recoil, except now it's gotten a slight nerf. It used to reduce your recoil by 25%, now it only reduces it by 20%. However, the other two grips, the horizontal grip and the angled grip, are vastly different. Firstly, the horizontal grip is replacing the no grip option. And what the horizontal grip does is it increases your character's movement speed. As you can see, this makes a pretty big difference in a 3-speed. They can feel really fast, but it does have the unwanted downside of giving you way more recoil. The same thing applies to the angled grip, except this grip gives you faster reload speed. More specifically, it gives you a 20% boost to your reload speed, which can feel pretty significant. However, like I said, the recoil is way more extreme with an angled grip. Now, in my experience, the angled grip is not nearly as useful as the horizontal grip for a couple of main reasons. The first being that most weapons already have a decent reload speed, so bringing a grip to increase that really isn't going to be that beneficial. Secondly, the horizontal grip can help make operators that are 3 armors or 2 speeds get around the map a lot quicker, allowing them to rotate quicker and to set up the bomb site quicker depending on what side you're on. This can be a pretty significant deal, and it can be helpful, but you can only run these grips on guns that don't have high recoil. For example, a weapon I like running the horizontal grip on is the T5 because it already has low recoil, and I can control it relatively easily even with this grip. You typically want a group somewhere in this center circle. If you have anything more extreme than that and you are having a hard time controlling it, I would recommend switching over to the vertical grip or some other recoil management attachment. Now, a solid example of a gun I steer clear of the horizontal grip on is the AK-12, because this gun can have some serious kick if you're not running the vertical grip. And it can even still be somewhat difficult to control with the vertical grip, depending on how skilled you are. So generally, you're gonna have to decide this on your own based on personal preference and how good you are at controlling recoil. Speaking of controlling recoil, the next thing I want to discuss is the type of barrels that you can run in Rainbow Six Siege. At the time of recording, there are 5 barrel options. There is the flash hider, compensator, muzzle brake, suppressor, and extended barrel. The flash hider affects vertical recoil. The compensator reduces horizontal recoil, and the muzzle brake reduces first shot recoil. Now, as you can see, these 3 barrel options change your recoil pretty significantly. Now, I'm sure you're wondering, how does the suppressor and the extended barrel affect your recoil? Well, they don't help with recoil at all. As you can see, the extended barrel makes you deal more damage, and the suppressor makes your gun a lot quieter, and it reduces muzzle flash. Now, the extended barrel typically won't have a huge effect on a weapon because it only gives you 15% more damage. So on a gun like the R4C, it goes from 39 damage to 43. However, this can have a huge effect on weapons that already have high damage in the first place. And then the suppressor, what it does is obviously make your gun a lot quieter, but it also has the huge downside, like the extended barrel, of giving you a lot more recoil because you're not running a barrel attachment to lower your recoil. Now, the type of barrel attachment you run is going to vary vastly from gun to gun, and also depending on how effective you are at controlling the recoil of each gun. For example, for me on the R4C, when I'm running ACOG, I like to bring the compensator because it helps to reduce vertical recoil. This gun is very jumpy in general and is very hard to control with an ACOG, but for me, I feel like the compensator helps me a lot more than the flash hider. But a lot of people like to run flash hider on it. It's all entirely personal preference. Now, one thing that you should take note of is the muzzle brake, because the muzzle brake is very effective on pistols and DMRs since it affects one-shot recoil. And since DMRs and pistols have no automatic option, running the muzzle brake can be very effective. However, due to pistols and DMRs already having low recoil, generally I find myself running a suppressor on them over the muzzle brake, but that choice is entirely up to you. Now, generally with the extended barrel and the suppressor on, your typical automatic weapons, you're going to want to run them on guns that already have low recoil. Frost SMG is the perfect example of this. I run the extended barrel on this gun every single time because its damage is quite low, but its recoil is already pretty low. So running the extended barrel can help make up for the low damage. As you can see, that spread is very good and it's not that hard to control. So when choosing a barrel attachment, you're just going to want to put some time into the shooting range and practice as much as you can. Once you get your hands on the weapon in the shooting range and you try to control the recoil, you'll be able to figure out pretty quickly what barrels you're going to want to run, and you're going to be able to also choose what kind of grips you want to run. Rainbow Six Siege's attachment system, as of Deadly Omen, is all about advantages and disadvantages. You're just going to have to choose what works best for you. Would you rather have faster sprinting speed but harder to control recoil? Would you rather have a quicker reload time and harder to control recoil? Do you want more damage and a faster sprinting speed but really hard to control recoil? All of these sort of scenarios are going to have to be decided on your own with your own playtime. I can't really give you a guide for each weapon because of how different everyone plays the game. Some people might like more aggressive playstyles, and so they'll pick attachments that help them to get that job done. but some people might like to play back on the site and to play safe and to not get super aggressive. And those players' loadouts are going to be completely different. So I just recommend for all of you to go into the shooting range, test out all the new attachments, and make a decision for yourself. But I do hope that the information in this video does help you come to that conclusion on your own. Anyways, hopefully you guys found today's video useful. If you did, I make Siege content just like this twice a week, so go subscribe to the channel and follow me on Twitter if you don't want to miss the next upload. Also, if you want to see yourself in future videos or streams, go ahead and join up in the Discord. Now I'm going back to making Siege content. I want to start doing my VOD reviews again, and I plan on doing other series involving you guys on the channel. And so if you want to get involved with that, join up in the Discord and we can go ahead and start setting those series up. Now, if you want to watch another video just like this one of me popping up on your screen right now that I'm sure you enjoyed. See you next time, friends, and peace.